We're in a moment of technological acceleration unlike anything the world has seen before. 5 years from now, life will look radically different, and the shift is already underway. I'm Rachel Wilkins, and this is The Good News Is, a show about what's next and how to meet it with curiosity. Each week, I'll talk with the thinkers and builders that are shaping the future, from the evolution of money to digital land, on-chain fashion, and even space travel. Let's get into it.
We have a wonderful guest joining us today, one of the planet's impact warriors. He is not only the Chief Impact Officer for the Chopra Foundation, but also founder of We the Planet and We the Future, which is a tremendous organization that you are the brainchild of that happens every year at the United Nations. So big welcome, Kunal Sood.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely am still a brainchild, according to my parents too.
You are a relentless, studious human being. How many degrees do you hold?
So actually it's ironic. After I think it was my second master's, I heard my dean say, develop a lifelong love for learning. And I think I just developed a lifelong love for learning disorder. And after that, I did 5 masters, finishing up my PhD now, which is focused on audacious leadership and creating a whole new theory of audacity. And my goal is to really unlock the inner secrets of using the inner sciences of India, as well as coupled with some of the best practices of management and leadership in the West, to build a better world, a better future through creating a model for what it looks like to be a real leader in today's world. Because today, I believe we have a real leadership problem. We don't have a technology or a resource problem. We have a massive leadership crisis that needs to be solved for here and now. And I feel like the most important thing we can do now is unite in action. And so my goal right now is to create that extraordinary citizenship. And I believe it starts with the self. Because when you have inner transformation, then you can truly have outward impact. Without the inner work and the inner transformation, I feel your outward impact is not as valuable to society, as well as not as coherent. So the deep coherence is what I'm looking to crack the code on, which India is really good at. We've kind of cracked the human genome of consciousness, and like to take it a step further and make it a true science in the management and leadership world.
Essentially, one of the biggest challenges that we have is that we're not really communicating with each other. We're communicating in silos. We're being served news that fits our belief system. We're not having these open dialogues with people that don't look and act and have similar social economic background to us. How do we solve that?
I believe it's a complex idea and problem. This is exactly why I started We the Future, because today we don't see the generations connecting or communicating effectively with each other. Not only generations, but even women and men, elder and youth. The elders think the youth are too entitled and they have too much luxury and time on their hands. The youth think that the elders have destroyed their world and they're living into a volatile and chaotic world that they don't know how to make sense of. And either one of them have their own point of view and reality that exists. The problem is there's no unity, there's no coherence, there's no conformity towards a solution. Right? So it's almost like today, this dissonance is causing more chaos versus solving for the problem itself. And so We the Future actually was started at the UN with that intention to bring the elders and the youth together, to bring men and women together, to unite in action, to make the impossible possible, not just around the global goals, but for much more important goals. I don't believe climate change is our greatest global brand challenge.
What do you think is?
I feel in human consciousness. I feel like climate change can take care of the world, meaning Mother Nature, if she decides to hiccup, we're done. And which is one evolution of life itself. Right? So we shouldn't think we're omnipotently more powerful than nature on the nature. We saw what happened recently in Dubai, and there's a whole controversy whether it was seeded by the humans or Mother Nature. Either which way, there was a small shudder towards us knowing that there's one force of nature we cannot compete with, which is Mother Nature.
No policy, no education, no anything is going to stop Mother Nature.
No, and that's why I feel like the unity of humanity is so important. Humanity at its core, we have all of the tools necessary to become unified as a force for good. We just have to make sure that we are very, very careful about how we tell the story of our future. We have to be very, very brave, courageous, but moral. And I feel that's what's missing. The moral ethics coupled with courageous compassion. that's going to actually make the impossible possible, which is saving our world for us and also from us.
One of the things that gives me pause, I don't want to say concern, but we're at a moment right now where technology is developing at a breakneck speed. Keith Grossman, who we both know, talks about how between the years of 1887 and 1905, we had the telephone, we had the automobile, we had the radio, we had the airplane, all invented in this very short window of time. What we're experiencing now, the technology that's coming, we can't even conceive of. And it's going to be here before we can even grapple with ethically how to handle that.
Yeah.
When we're thinking about shepherding in this new technology, whilst also making sure we protect the young minds that are involved in these conversations, how do we be mindful about that? And how do we bring consciousness into the conversation?
I actually see AI as an extraordinary opportunity for humanity. I see it just like fire, electricity, and the internet combined. Like a lot of people say, AI is like fire, AI is like electricity, AI is like the new internet.
Right.
The truth is, it's like the trifecta of all three. Because AI is actually going to be the force field that shapes the arc of what we become as humanity. Because truthfully, where we are here and now, we can become omnipotently more powerful and still be like sharks and eat each other in the womb. And that's the truth of AI and the future of AI. And that's why consciousness, human transformation, the inner transformation of human beings, the story we tell ourselves, the story we tell each other, the story we co-create is going to be so important, because that's going to be the difference between being stuck in the matrix or living into a beautiful future, which doesn't have to be utopian, but it's better than the matrix. It's human. Right? Because think about it, we are born human beings, and we spend a lifetime learning the art and science of being human. Right?
We have a master it.
I mean, that's the goal, right? We master the art of being human. The problem is that we often have egos that come in, and then because others are not on the path, at least this is what I've seen in my own culture, we have a very guru culture. So people start following one leader, and that cult-like figure becomes the beacon of hope. And I'm not against men or leaders being beacons of hope, but I believe true leaders create other leaders, not just followers.
And that is something you're deeply passionate about, is leadership. It's something that's been a big focus of your impact work. Let's talk about your work. And also, since we're here, we have this fabulous, I'm wondering why there's a hammer on the table. This is a very special hammer. Why don't you tell us about this, and also, where leadership kind of comes into the disrupting of the kind of the impact?
Yeah, so this hammer actually was awarded to me. I was very honored. Did you see this? This is my second hammer.
Wow.
This is a very distinguished hammer because it was a story told around nonviolence and peace in our time. It was created as the Tribeca Disruptor Innovation Awards Disruptor Hammer for Hiroshima, where, what happened in Hiroshima. And then we tied it to 9/11 and what happened in 9/11. So no act of terrorism, big or small, should ever happen again. So the slogan was never again. And recently in November, when Gaza and Israel and the world, also Ukraine and, Russia started having conflict, I felt, I can't stop the conflict. But I can definitely serve as an agent for true, deeply meaningful dialogue and the ability to truly come to a table on both sides, a rabbi and a Palestinian, extraordinary citizens from Ukraine as well as Russia, because we shouldn't vilify countries. I don't believe we've reached that divine plane of consciousness to be sentient enough to decide who's evil and who's, good. And I think that's the human predicament or dilemma. It's this idea of believing who is good and who is evil. What's momentous.
Where does that come from? Does it serve us in any way on a human level?
It does. It gives you discernment. So if you know that danger is approaching, you can protect yourself. So I'm not saying that you should be silly and embrace the perpetrator. But there's a way in which my job is to really be strong, be disruptive, and be courageous, but do it with kindness, compassion, and use violence as your last option. First come to the table. That's why we did We the Future at the UN. And so I received this at the UN because I wanted to reimagine peace in our time using AI and consciousness, not just for climate change or for climate action, but for human action, the inner climate that affects all of us, right? So if we don't solve for our inner climate, the violence within, the storm that, is really brewing inside, then you're not going to solve for the storms that are going to be, ignited by nuclear war or even the way we live. It doesn't even need a war anymore. It's just our basic living habits and lifestyle has started to trigger Mother Nature's wrath. And in order to turn that back, I think what needs to happen is we as human beings have to really solve for our inner climate so that the climate on the outside also reflects the totality of human consciousness and potentiality.
You've spoken on global stages. Just yesterday, you gave a keynote in the middle of Times Square.
Yeah.
Which was phenomenal.
That was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
You've led organizations, you've spoken and led panels at the UN. I'm curious to know, on a personal level, what has been your favorite moment in terms of the impact you've been able to make on the lives of somebody else?
So on a personal level, I felt deep satisfaction when I can actually see someone. In the beginning, it's kind of a joke because for the first 6 years of my life I was doing this, I was like, it's such hard work, but I didn't see the point of convening extraordinary experiences or gatherings as my life's journey and purpose because it wasn't recognized as a field of expertise in India. Yeah, in America, I have my extraordinary Einstein visa because of that. And I think this is what makes this country so amazing. They recognize human potential at its core. They don't have to fit you in a box of a lawyer, doctor, engineer, businessman. I'm a curator of the future, a social impact strategist, entrepreneur by nature. And they embraced that and gave me an opportunity over a lifetime to actually do what I do best, which is curate these amazing gatherings that I've been part of, whether it was bringing TED to the United Nations as TEDx and then becoming a TED resident and then becoming on these summits like We the Future, We the Planet, Novus. I've done so many to speak of so far, but what really inspires me about what I do is when a person comes up to me and says, your summit changed my life. In the beginning, I'd say, oh my God, your life must be really pathetic that my summit changed. And because I had a false belief. I had an inner critic telling me that this is not good enough. You have to be more. But then I realized, my God, it's true. One moment, one meeting, one inspired idea, one inspired talk or conversation can transform a person's entire life trajectory. And that's why I do the work I do. That's why I believe in the idea of convening and curating and speaking out loud. I believe everyone has a voice. No voice should be left behind. And there's so many hidden voices in this world that have unbelievable ideas, that should be shared with the world.
Does the pandemic change how you view your approach to impact? Given that you are somebody who you're a social butterfly, you are a networker extraordinaire, you are impact driven, you can bring people together. All of a sudden we had this just devastating moment where everybody was home and in lockdown, but it was also a place for big ideas, clubhouse rooms from now.
Oh my God, yeah.
Deep connections were made. Do you think it's changed how you approach your work?
I think COVID-19 taught me that I really had to reimagine what kind of curator and what kind of social impact I have in the world. I thought I was really at the top of my game, and then everything just came crashing down. So it gave me this massive shot of humility. All of a sudden, I had to really reimagine my whole life in every breath, in every way I did things. And after a point, online stuff and Clubhouse got really exhausting. Not to mention the payback was more of a God-given grace versus an actual payback.
Yes.
So for me, I think how I've reimagined this whole world of social impact is that we have but one hope. In fact, during the pandemic, I started working on the International Day of Hope and launched something called Operation Hope. And we did a whole summit around that. And for me, the greatest thing one can have is hope. Because even in pain, if you can take all that suffering, and there was deep suffering of the world, and we could feel it. I felt suffering. I suffered tremendously. And if you can take that, and if you can turn it into a gift, that is hope. I feel like that in itself is how I reimagine doing my work now. Hope, consciousness, faith that turns into some kind of tangible, meaningful impact in the world. And that's why I'm very excited, because we're doing something this month, leading into Mental Health Awareness Month. For May, we're going to convene a roundtable, and that's going to be the world's first of its kind. And I'd love to proclaim a day where we really do reimagine global mental health, well-being, and leadership in our time. Because that's what's needed now. I feel like you don't have health. You know, there's that saying, right? A person without health has but one hope, which is good health. A person who is healthy has 1,000 different dreams and hopes that can come alive. So for me, it's that idea of reducing pain and suffering and giving people hopes and health and hope, so well-being and hope, so that they can make their dreams come alive. I feel like that's one of the most important things you can do now, is really find your massive transformative purpose, realize it, and then pass it on, pay it forward. And that's something that I'm very, very big on, paying it forward.
To take you back briefly.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the beginning of your impact journey. You had shared a story with me privately about your time in Mumbai.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay. So I won't go back right to the beginning, but I'll say the impetus for the work I do in the second life I lead now was when I lost my mentor to suicide in 2007. And that experience threw me into a complete disarray of beliefs and emotions. I thought my life was set as an Indian. I was going to get married, be Iron Man by day, be Doctor Strange by night, have my kids, make my father proud and happy finally. My mom would accept me because she knows who I am. And everything just turned dark. And so instead what I did was I went and became a therapist, and I worked in the death and dying ward, the palliative care ward. There I witnessed so many acts of miracle and pain. And then I was accepted into this research program at UCSF, as part of which the practicum I was accepted into Harvard School of Public Health for the Slum Health Project. That's literally what they call it. They call it the Slum Health Global Mental Health Project. And it was inspired by the movie Slumdog Millionaire.
Oh, wow.
Right? So literally Rockefeller gave a grant to Harvard, and they went in there to figure out how to help these really, really underserved communities. And I got the gift of being there. And, in the beginning, I thought I'm from Harvard and I'm from UCSF, which is the best of the best. And I reached there and I was like, oh, and I'm an Indian with a little bit of privilege, so I'm going to save the slum, because it was just a small part of Mumbai where I'm not from. I'm from Chennai and Delhi, so I had no real access to Mumbai. But I saw the magnitude of suffering. And I mean, I kid you not, I've lived in India and I had never seen that amount of abject poverty in my life. So I was brought to my knees in a way that was even more humbling than anything else. And I realized I can't save these people. And what ended up happening was really interesting. They actually ended up saving my life and transforming me, because, I said, all I'm going to do is learn how to serve. And the greatest gift and lesson I learned when I was in that community is it really doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. You can come from Harvard, or you can come from the Rockefellers. And what matters most is that you're cherished, loved, and honored by the community that you serve, right? And that's what I really learned in my time in the slums of Mumbai. And those smiles will never, never leave me. Those kids learned how to turn such a mundane and almost fearful life into a joyful expression of the divine. And that was the greatest lesson I learned when I was in the slums of Mumbai. And that actually inspired me to become a TEDx curator. That inspired me to do all of the work that I've collaborated with the UN on. I never worked for the UN. I was more like a disruptor from the outside in. and they'd bring me in to do these impossible projects, about X Prize, Singularity University, TED, just like really fascinating people, Mark Benioff, people who usually hadn't preached the UN or didn't understand what the UN was about. And I believe the UN stands for something really significant. I believe that global goals really represent an opportunity for us to embrace making the impossible possible, which is my life's journey and purpose. And that's why I keep doing the work I do, keep pushing forward, because I feel like, as long as you don't forget who you are or where you come from, but don't hold on to it, and just serve without fear or favor. And that's what I believe is the greatest thing you can do. Serve something larger than yourself and serve without fear or favor.
I love that. You're reminding me of a saying that a good friend of mine uses, and that is, lead with your hand up and not out.
Yeah.
And ask how you can be of help rather than what can you give me. I guess in closing, we have hope here. What are you hopeful about, and how do we translate that message of service, of mindfulness, of consciousness into tomorrow's leaders?
So I feel like the greatest hope for humanity is really for us to unlock our consciousness and align it with our purpose-driven leadership. And what I mean by that is unlocking the divine consciousness for positive impact. Because there are leaders out there that haven't had as positive an impact as we'd hope for. So not all leaders are created equal. And not all leaders will stay evil. Some should be given a second chance to become good. And not all good leaders or great leaders stay good. Some become evil. So for me, my greatest hope for humanity is that we start to really accept for us as human beings for who we are and build the courageous compassion, live life in every breath with courage, compassion, and altruism. And I live my life in every breath by this one quote that I heard for the first time at Singularity University from my dearest one of my best friends and mentors, David Roberts. Actually, it's a mix of Meg Cabot and Theodore Roosevelt, and it says, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the judgment that something more important like love and compassion triumph over fear. The brave may not live forever, but the cautious do not live at all." So for me, my greatest hope in life is that we embrace that ideal and embody it in our lives to become audacious, extraordinary leaders of the future.
What a wonderful place to leave it. Kunal, thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Thank you.
This was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to The Good News Is. If you're excited about what's next, make sure to follow the show and visit goodnewsstudio.io for more stories, guests, and ways to stay connected. Until next time, stay curious.